Executive Constantine.
Wow, I got block-on music. This is great. You guys have gotten much fancier since the last time I was at the chamber. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate the opportunity to join my chamber and to share what we've been up to. First, I wanted to make sure I introduced my boss, the Deputy Executive of King County, West Seattle's own Shannon Braddock. Also, thank you for preparing the vegan lunch. When I saw that it was all vegan, I thought that Rachel had subjected you to veganism just for me, but in fact, it was totally separate. I'm really happy for the coincidence. We are, my family, newcomers to West Seattle. My parents arrived in 1953, and I didn't arrive until 1961. But I got to attend the then still kind of new Schmitz Park Elementary School and Madison Junior High while my mom was teaching there. That was a special treat. And then graduated from West Seattle High School. And in fact, we had either our 30th or 35th reunion in this room. It was, we're now coming up on our 45th this summer. In fact, I was happy to find out that the meeting was here because I was on the board of the Delridge Neighborhoods Development Association when the school district was surplusing this site, and we were desperately trying to figure out how to save it. And we had this big project, 3 projects, 1 community, where we raised money and did Arts West, this, and Brandon Court, and the library. And yes, you know, it's funny, as I travel around and talk with groups that I've visited with repeatedly and realize that it's the last time I'll do it as executive because I've announced I'm not running for a 5th term, thank you. I'm reminded of all the little accomplishments, the little things you kind of get a chance to have a hand in that accumulate over time. I got to work with Southwest Youth and Family Services when we got the little building across the street to be their first real headquarters. And then I got to work when we got that field turf on the field across the street into the park sled. We got to work with DNDA on this. And it's immensely rewarding to be able to, you know, have a job that allows you to just plug along doing little things for the community that raised you. And I cannot imagine a more satisfying job to be able to have than the ones I've had, representing you in the House and Senate and on the County Council, and now as a county executive. My first real job, when I turned 16 at West Seattle High School, was down at Spud. That was the week I turned 16, that's right. And that was I don't think I've had more than a couple weeks off since then, but you know, and by the way, the Hall of Fauntleroy, I didn't tell you this when we sat down together. My great uncle, Bonner A. Wilson, was the principal of Fauntleroy Elementary. He always said Fauntleroy Elementary School. And I had my very first kickoff when I ran for the House of Representatives in 1996 at the Hall of Fauntleroy. So I have very warm feelings for that building and the wonderful work that you've done over the years to keep it alive and thriving. Anyways, was said, I went straight to the University of Washington from high school and then moved back to West Seattle about every other quarter as I ran out of money and was unable to continue to live on campus. Thankfully, my parents stayed in the house we're in, and they're still there. They're now well into their mid to late 90s and live in the same house in which we were raised. And my wife and daughter and I, it's on kind of the windy roads in between Avenel and Alki. My wife and daughter and I, our daughter's 10, live across the street and get to visit them just about every day. It's a very West Seattle thing. And I go back a long ways with this chamber too. It was about 35 years ago that I was the land use chair for the chamber. I was, I think, just becoming a lawyer and in graduate school studying urban planning, and they wrote me in, and I spent many years participating in this organization, and I'm just so excited. I was talking with some folks about this, so excited to see how vibrant and peopled the chamber is these days. It's had its ups and its downs, and a lot of that follows kind of the economy and so forth. But it seems like the chamber is going great guns, and I'm really, really proud of it. So that's all the time I have today. I'm in my 4th and final term as county executive, 16th year in this particular position, and it has been a remarkable journey. We have accomplished a lot. Of course, there's always something new to do as people continue to create problems that we need to figure out how to solve. I won't name any people in particular, but you know, we've been navigating over the course of this time 2, I guess soon to be 3, sort of national and global financial meltdowns. That's going to be a terrible picture, by the way.
No, you look great.
I was rolling my eyes during that shot. Global financial meltdowns, a pandemic, 3 governorships, 4 presidential administrations, and like 5, 6, or 7 mayorships of Seattle, depending on how you count. And I'm still here. So I feel good about that. I think it's been a really interesting experience to navigate these changes in direction and the flow of history. The challenges we face are significant, and they're often daunting. We are committed to tackling the tough issues with innovative, effective solutions to deliver the services people need to live healthy, successful lives. So I'm just going to touch on a few topic areas and then hopefully leave time for questions. Public safety will be the first. Everyone deserves to feel safe in their community, in their workplace, in their home, and on public transit. And violence that we've seen on public transit is deeply concerning and a reminder of the ongoing need for a holistic approach to public safety. What is happening on our streets will, in some form or fashion, evidence itself on the transit that operates on those streets. It is impossible to completely separate the two. We are taking action to ensure the immediate and long-term safety of our transit system. I launched last May 1st Operation Safe Transit. That was aligning all of our transit police from Metro and Sound Transit along with our private security officers to really identify folks, not just those who are breaking the law, obviously, and need to be arrested, but also those who are violating the transit rules of conduct, and remove them from transit. Some people need to be taken into the criminal legal system, but a lot of people need to be taken into the behavioral health system. And so we've been focusing on that to really seek to ensure everyone that they can ride transit safely. We're piloting, you are undoubtedly aware of the tragic murder of our bus driver, our operator, Sean Yim, in December. We have previously, and are still piloting, secure doors that can be locked, metal doors, for the operators. This has been a controversial issue with operators themselves over time, but I think they are now committed to the idea that they need separate compartments, much as you would find on a train, for the operator to be able to safely operate the vehicle even if a disturbance begins. We're piloting new we're adding a team of 14 behavioral health specialists as well to provide referrals and support for people we encounter in the transit system, whether it's in a transit facility or on board, who clearly need some behavioral health interventions. I'm looking forward to participating in the safety task force that we've set up with the Amalgamated Transit Union. We're convening on the 20th of this month to really begin our joint effort of government, law enforcement agencies, and our transit partners. More broadly, we've updated and expanded the emergency radio system for the region. So this is a project that actually has taken the entire time I've been in public office to convert the system to more modern digital format, because it's not just for the county, It's not just for all of our agencies. We have 18,000 employees, and it's a vast operation, but it is for every agency that touches on public safety in our region. And so we took the lead in creating that, and we have it now deployed. Our emergency medical system, 911 dispatchers, can communicate better and respond more quickly to emergencies countywide. In 2024, the Sheriff's Office, Precinct 4 Special Emphasis Team, as well continued their interdiction work, particularly with fentanyl. They seized 487 pounds of narcotics and with an estimated street value of $13.5 million. That is part of behavioral health, is addiction, mental health, and substance use disorder. And that entire treatment regime has been underfunded in this nation for far too long. The issues are so complex, and there's no simple solution, and COVID made this much worse. But we are charting a path forward locally, even without a ton of help from the national government at the moment, to be able to help folks reclaim their lives. In 2023, voters approved, and thank you, the Crisis Care Centers Initiative, the transformational investment in behavioral health, and we're already taking action. We've expanded the number of mobile teams who can get out and help people experiencing a behavioral health crisis. We have 32 teams deployed across the county to de-escalate crises and connect people to services. 5 of those teams are exclusively for youth. We're adding 10 more teams in the coming months. We announced that the center that we helped open last year in Kirkland, Crisis Health Solutions, will become the first official crisis care center under the King County program. They applied, they were well qualified, and so they will now be the north location. We will also have east, south, Seattle, and then 1 crisis care center for youth. Our crisis services are available to anyone, regardless of your ability to pay. And the key to this is that up until just last year, there was no place in King County that you could self-refer or your family member could bring you if you were in crisis. If you got arrested, there was one place that the cops could bring you, or if you're being discharged from a hospital, they could direct you to this one location. But imagine, as we're in the middle of a behavioral health crisis, having nowhere to go. You can call up and get on the list, and they might get back to you in a month or so with an opportunity for treatment. That is not okay. So that is what this is aimed at. Getting people in, getting them stabilized, then moving them to the other side of the house to begin a course of treatment, then getting them referred to the right place for them, whether it is simply supportive housing, back home, possibly a referral to evaluation for more intensive hospitalization. This is what we are doing locally to make up for the abdication of responsibility at higher levels of government. We have to do it for the good of the people of this community. We also created a 24/7 hotline for folks who are seeking medication for opioid use disorder. It's becoming quite difficult for people to get prescriptions. Last year, that hotline served 654 patients who were getting medication to help them with their opioid use disorder. And the work is attracting national attention. I was recruited to be the co-chair of the National Association of Counties Commission on Mental Health and Well-Being. We convened for 2 years, rolling up all the work that's going on in local governments like ours around the country, and showing what we need from our state, particularly federal government, to help us create a seamless, holistic system to deal with this national crisis. We got some help from the federal government last year in the form of FCC modifications that help us with 911 geolocation, and that helps with getting help to people who are, for instance, having an overdose or a mental health crisis. But the work continues. Mental health and addiction you see on our streets, and those are conditions that are made worse by being homeless. Some people become homeless because they have a mental health or addiction problem. A lot more people have problems that occur or are made dramatically worse by the vulnerability, the trauma of being without a home. And they are not the root cause of homelessness. The root cause of homelessness is there's not enough places to live. But the people who have those challenges are the least able to compete for the scarce housing there is. So if there are two people who are homeless and one new house comes on the market, it's the person who isn't addicted or doesn't have a mental health challenge who's more likely to be the person who gets into that house. We are working to fix the housing market, which is a big assignment. Right now, there are very few permits in the pipeline because money is very expensive and the cost of construction has gone through the roof since the beginning of COVID. Rents have not followed that, so nobody can make money building new housing right now. And with no new housing coming on the market, it means at the bottom of the income scale, the rental scale, things are going to be getting worse. So we have to precipitate the construction of new housing. We intervened with the resources we have available. Last year, we helped build 1,248 new affordable homes that opened their doors to families and seniors and veterans. We have 11 Help Through Housing buildings across the county now, and we'll be opening 3 more this year. We have over 1,000 people who've moved into those, and these are folks like those I just described, who need not just housing, but they need kind of ongoing support services. So this is like permanent supportive housing. Some of them will eventually be able to move into housing without supports. Some of them will not, but they will not be on the streets. And we have to keep going with that tranche, that kind of housing. Safe, affordable housing is indispensable to the health of everyone in our region, and we are continually working to prevent people, first and foremost, from falling into homelessness. And we come at this from different angles through different programs. For instance, Best Starts for Kids, our nation-leading early childhood program that we started in 2015, thank you very much, prevents thousands and thousands of families and kids who are not being supervised by parents from falling into homelessness every year. They don't come up in those statistics you hear every year about homeless. They remain housed. And that work needs to be expanded, but I have to tell you that a lot of what you don't see out there is taking a lot of work from a lot of really dedicated public employees. And if I could, just take a moment, I want to really raise up and thank our county employees. They do this work because they are really dedicated to the cause of making their community a better place, of our true north, that we will be a welcoming community where every person can thrive. And a lot of these folks could be doing something different, but they choose to do this, and the fact that their colleagues at the federal level are being vilified and targeted is painful for them, because these are people we work with constantly at the EPA, at all federal agencies across the board. There are folks who are struggling right now because they also came to public service to do good for their country. And yet, even that is not the greatest threat, because we are struggling with the threat of a changing global climate. And it is making not just the world, but our region more imperiled. So we've been working to make the region more resilient, more sustainable, more equitable. We had a great success last year. So at West Point, we were having challenges with these increasing storms, having water cascading down into this plant and causing overflows. And the power would flicker a little bit. It knocked out all the pumps in the station. So I set our folks about to figure out how to engineer a solution. They created an entire huge battery backup. I mean, this is a multi-story building full of batteries. And all it does is smooth the power, so that if there's a power surge or a power sag, it doesn't cause the engine to shut off. So when we had that bomb cyclone, that normally would have been catastrophic. And we would have had spills, nothing. Just sailed right through it. And so thank you for... these are the kinds of innovations we just have to engage in a changing world, in a changing climate. We're strengthening our wildfire response. We're preparing for hotter summers. We're expanding green jobs, because that is a place where we can really offer people opportunity. And Metro is leading the way, moving toward a 100% zero-emission transit fleet. And speaking of transit, local and regional transit ridership is growing by leaps and bounds. Metro is just like a department. This is one of my 12 reports in my cabinet. Metro is the 7th largest local transit agency in the country. It had the 2nd biggest growth last year of any of its peers in the country. People are getting back on transit. And if you've been in the post-COVID traffic, you have some hint as to why. But also, we're offering products that people really want. That rapid ride line, these rapid ride lines, we've added 8 of them since we opened the first one after I became executive. We have 2 more under construction, 2 more in the planning. They're really popular. That is the kind of service people want and need and flock to. And just the 8 lines account for like 20% of our ridership now. Sound Transit, since 2009, the year I took office, has gone from 0 miles to 43.5 miles and 43 stations. And by next spring, will be 61.5 miles and 51 stations, growing into being in the sort of top echelon of rail services nationally. It is remarkable growth in a very short time, unless you count all the time since I was 6 years old when the first rail measure failed on the ballot, which is the way I count it. So I'm optimistic about our ability to continue to deliver service like this rapid ride line, like that rail, like those rail lines. We've seen great strides, but we have a lot more to do. We'll be opening to Federal Way, Sound Transit is, Federal Way, Mercer Island, and Redmond over the course of next year. And then we have the World Cup. And everything has to be, if you'll pardon the pun, on track and operating perfectly so that we can move all those visitors from around the world during the World Cup. We've implemented flat fares. I convened all of the transit agencies, so like 7 transit agencies, and we're working towards sort of a unified fare system, make it as simple as possible, recognizing local needs. So we implemented at Metro and at Sound Transit a flat fare, and you can get on transit and use it all day. And we're really working toward making this as easy as possible for as many people as possible. We're also confronting public safety issues, as I talked about. The challenge we have, of course, is with escalating costs, which we see in everything. I talked about it in housing. We're doing a multi-billion-dollar, well now it's multi-billion-dollar, redo of Harborview Hospital. It was $1.75 billion before COVID. It's gone up the better part of $1 billion now because of the construction cost increases. And the same thing's happening in transit construction, particularly in complex parts of it, like tunneling, long span bridges, etc. But everything's costing more, and it's not going to get cheaper with big tariffs on steel and other products that we use. So these are not insurmountable problems, they're just real big problems. And they're problems that require a lot of focus and a lot of creativity and everybody pulling in the same direction. The Sound Transit Board last month took action to support advancing the work we can do to help small businesses, compensate people for potential losses, and rather than having people have to wait until we have absolute certainty about the construction of the West Seattle line, that same work will be going on in Ballard, in Tacoma, in Everett, as we move out to build out Sound Transit 3. We also, in closing, just a couple more things. Last year, the County Council adopted my proposal to finally support arts, heritage, culture in the way that it needs to be supported in our region by adopting Doors Open. Doors Open will provide nearly $100 million a year for arts and heritage organizations, science organizations, large and small, across King County. This is an enormous investment. For instance, the National Endowment for the Arts gives about $200 million a year nationally. This is $100 million in King County each year on an ongoing basis. It's going to make a big difference for a lot of those organizations that have been teetering on the brink since COVID. It's going to make a big difference with projects like this to preserve community assets. I'm really excited about the way in which it's going to support the vast cultural industry that employs so many people. And finally, I had a meeting last night, again with community leaders, around something that we've sort of working title called Civic Campus Initiative. So this is my proposal to redevelop the 7 or 8 blocks that the county owns around the King County Courthouse, which are really underutilized these days. They're a place where there is no one in the office after 5 or 6, where there's no residential at all. And so it is a very unhealthy street environment, and it's unhelpful not just to our district, but to all the surrounding neighborhoods. We have the ability to build thousands upon thousands of units of housing there, and a coherent streetscape, and retail and restaurants that people can mix and mingle in, to build office, yes, but also space for visitors, and to really do the work we need to do to clean up the foot of 3rd Avenue. It is an exciting project. It's going to take decades and decades. Thank you. This is water, right? Okay. It's going to take decades and decades to complete, but we have to do it in a clear, concerted, planned way, because otherwise the properties will simply be sold off and developed piecemeal, and we will have a situation where we have a bunch of different buildings, but we don't have a great new neighborhood. We have the chance to create a neighborhood in the middle of downtown Seattle, and really rounding up the folks who are determined to make that happen. So in King County, we're making plans to serve our vision and our values, and then, as in the last example I said, really summoning the people and the courage to get those things done. We are working every day. All of our employees are aligned around this sort of true north that we have set, working every day to make this that welcoming community where every person, regardless of where you started your life, every person can thrive. I want to thank you for being a part of creating that opportunity. Thank you so much. And now, I'd be happy to take your questions.
I'll start. As you wind down your years in elected public service, what drew you to get into public service in the first place?
Yeah, that's a question I often ask myself. I was kind of a news nerd when I was a little kid. I was like a social studies nerd. I liked the public realm. I didn't really do anything about that until 1979, the last day of filing for student office for my senior year, the following year. And I talked to my friends as we walked in the lunchroom, and they were like, "Oh, you should, put your name in." And so I, took a leap and put my name in the little box right there at the lunchroom at West Seattle High School to run for student body president. And somehow, miraculously, with a coalition of, band geeks and honors students and the kids who hung out behind the portables, I won. And well, here I am. So that led me to have an internship in Olympia 4 years later with our state senator, who had been student body president 11 years before me at West Seattle, Bill Talmadge. And he's like, "Oh, you should work on this campaign." And then all of a sudden, my law career kind of unwound, and I got really involved in this much less lucrative business, and now here I am. So, honestly, as I said at the outset, I'm continually reflecting on how fortunate I am to be able to do work that is that I see as being of value to the place that raised me. It started really in earnest when I worked on saving the College Street ravine over by our house, along with Charlie Chong. Anybody remember Charlie Chong? He was our neighbor. And he taught us about community activism. My brother and I got involved in this whole thing. It was going to be bulldozed and turned into a few houses, but now it's a great little park, and it's still there, right? And the trees we planted back in the late 80s are gigantic. And seeing those kinds of things is really, really satisfying. And been able to take that and kind of blow it up on a large scale, so we worked to create a conservation initiative across the entire county, and our conservation futures investments are now dramatically greater than they were, and we're preserving tens of thousands of acres of wilderness. And it all started with this little ravine over here in the Avalon District.
Now, I don't want to scare people, and I know it's a bit of a roller coaster situation right now with the federal government, but is there one piece that's really keeping you up at night when it comes to federal funding, or whatever you want to call it, coming to King County? Is there something you can tell us? Again, I don't want to scare people, I just want to get real.
Sure. Well, let's talk about transit. We get a lot of funding for Metro Transit. I just accepted a $80 million FTA grant, like right before the inauguration, for a new rapid rail line. Sound Transit counts on, I think we have, $11 billion sort of booked over the course of the next 20 years for federal funding for transit here. And it's not just the loss of funding. I mean, they just like stopped the environmental processes. We're waiting for a record of decision on our EIS for West Seattle, and they're just like, yeah, we'll get back to you sometime. So those are scary things when they stop doing the basic work. I mean, that's really going to bring things across the board, whether you're talking about human services or public health or what have you, to a halt. Things keep me up at night are not just about King County, though. I mean, I'm desperately worried about the people of Ukraine, right? I'm desperately worried about our friends in Canada. I was in Canada. Shannon and I were with a delegation in Canada. We met with the Minister of Trade for British Columbia. I have never seen Canadians so visibly perturbed before. Yeah, that's the highest it gets, visibly perturbed. But they're really it's visceral, and to have your greatest ally, your greatest trading partner, be really, really mad at you is not a great thing for us, particularly here in this trade-dependent and very sort of quasi-Canadian part of the country. But we, of course, they understand it's not us, right? Like we're up there, they pulled all the Jack Daniels from the shelves. They had all the Washington wine on the shelves, right? So they're being very strategic, very targeted out there, venting their anger. Others?
So you say that there's now somewhere for people to go check themselves in if they need help. Is there a way, how could somebody who's on the street right now, and maybe in West Seattle, who needs that help, whether they know admit that or not, how would they know about that place or get themselves there?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I actually deal face-to-face with a lot of the folks we see in West Seattle on a daily basis, and I have the privilege of being able to call like a department director and say, could you please find someone to fix this? So they don't have that resource. This place that I've talked about is in Kirkland, so it's pretty hard to, for someone who's not very mobile to get to. Shannon, if you could find us the right contact. 211?
It's 211 is the crisis
Okay.
connections organization that can help connect.
So we're working on the other locations that will be closer to places where people who need help are. There will be a Seattle location. Without going too deep into it, I'm really optimistic that we'll have a Seattle location to announce sooner rather than later. Also a youth location, which may be in one spot, or it may be one spot with a couple of satellites so that youth closer to home can get into the system and then get to the help they need. And then we'll have one in the South County cities and on the east side. So this is just the front end of what needs to be a really well knit together continuum of care. But it is obviously, when you see folks on the street who are decompensating or in the throes of addiction, you know that it's an unmet need. And so we just felt like we had to respond to that first, even though it's not the be-all, end-all.
And also, anyone is welcome at that Kirkland clinic. It's far, far away from this location, but it's not limited to that region. So while it's the first one, it is open and available to the rest of the region right now.
So I would just like to publicly thank you for all that you've done for our West Seattle community over the years. I mean, we're sitting in
That's
this
great.
beautiful facility right now that was part of the capital campaign that you referred to. So, thank you. I've had the privilege of working with you on a couple of these things. And it just shows what one person, when they put their mind to something, can get that big thing done.
One person with a whole bunch of people working with them, like you. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, final question?
I do have it's more of a, well, have you ever heard of or considered the house them first model?
I mean, we do follow the housing first model. That is our model. We get criticized for it sometimes because a lot of times people want to like shame homeless people or folks who are struggling with addiction. Go, as soon as you get your act together, then you can have a roof over your head. And you know, even if you thought that was the right approach philosophically or morally, it doesn't actually work because it's really hard for people to get their act together when they're struggling to survive on the street every night. So we take the approach that we need to get inside and then get you calmed down and cleaned up and then start talking with you about, okay, friend, what do we need to do to start having you be able to get back to having some agency and owning your own life again? And that's what like these health through housing facilities, so these are mostly hotels we bought during COVID when the prices were in the ditch. It's a lot cheaper than building new and faster. Get people in there. They have on-site services. It's not like you're standing at the door waiting for them to quit being addicted to drugs or whatever. You like get in your room, let's get your clothes washed, let's get you a couple full nights sleep, and then let's have a little meeting and talk about what we can do to start getting you to whatever services you need. It might just be you need a job. A lot of times it's some kind of mental health or addiction treatment. A lot of times it's something to reconcile you with your family so that you can reach the supports, the natural supports that you would have in the community. But I think there is little question that that the first step is simply getting someone off the streets. People have, it's almost impossible to start recovering if you're just scrambling for survival every night. Right?
All right, thank you. Wow, so much information, a lot to digest. So as we move forward, I want to call out some of the partners who, in addition to our very informative keynote, helped make today happen. We've got the Executive Director for DNDA in the